Hello, everybody. Welcome to Watches with Dennis. And today is Saturday, at least Saturday here in the United States. And so I am going to be doing my usual Saturday live stream. Today, the topic is going to be 2024 watch blunders. I've only got three that I want to focus on because a couple of them I think we're going to have a significant amount of time on them. So I didn't want to overload it. Plus, I'll be looking towards the live chat to be able to provide suggestions on other things that you think watch brands did in terms of, did they have a watch line that was a blunder? Did they have one decision that was a blunder? Is the entire brand a blunder? You know, that would be kind of a fun thing to do, I think. A little snarky, I suppose, but sometimes those make for the best live stream. So anyway, before I get going with that, I want to say hello to a couple of people that already got hellos in before I even went live. Irvin, welcome back to the live stream. Glad you could make it. And Kevin, welcome back to you as well. Hope things are going well for you out in Florida. So while this is a more negative style live stream, I did a couple of days ago have my best watches of 2024. I did them by category. So I did things like chronograph, GMT, pilot's watch, integrated sports bracelet, dive watch. I think I'm missing one. But anyway, I have those. I'm going to put a link in the live chat to that. So if you want to go and watch that, because I actually did it in the evening, which I don't usually do. I have on occasion done live streams in the weekday evenings. In fact, when I do panels, it almost always is in the evenings because that's what works best for individuals. However, I am so exhausted when it's the evening my time. I don't feel like I do a very good show. So anyway, but I've been off work, so I was able to be rested and capable. I will argue capable for a semi-fun topic in that regard. So anyway, so I had that. And then yesterday, I actually went and posted my review of the Seiko SRPK 17. That is the anniversary watch of the Seiko 5, the first Seiko 5 Sports. I need to clarify because I said it wrong in the video. Said it was the first Seiko 5. It is not. It's the first Seiko 5 Sports, because the Sports-O-Matic, as I learned, came out in 1963. So I've added some information in the video description. There's a card that will clarify that statement. However, the Sports line is the line that a lot of people get really excited about. The Sports-O-Matic actually looks very much like a dress watch. But the Seiko 5 Sports, of course, turned into the line that is now readily available as the accessible model line that exists for Seiko today. But it actually dates back over 50 years. So anyway, viewer gave me that watch as a gift. And thus, I have finally had a week's worth of time on it, which is my usual amount I like to invest in a watch before I go ahead and post a review video. So, of course, since I had it, I was like, I might as well review it. I'm not wearing that watch today. Today, I am wearing my The Citizen. This is one of their high-accuracy quartz models, if I can get it to focus, which I always struggle with because I never practice this and always wants to think that it's my face. But anyway, this is the one with the little platinum flakes on the dial. I think this was a limited model to about 500 units. But anyway, it's actually sunny out today, so I figured this actually went into hibernation mode, which is usually a good sign that I need to wear it again because I keep it in a watch box in the dark. So anyway, it's on the wrist today, and we will not be talking about Citizen when it comes to blunders. Well, unless some of you have a suggestion as one of the blunders. But let me go ahead and finish getting caught up with the live chat, and then we will jump into the first one, which I think will be our shortest discussion. And then I've got two other things that I want to go ahead and cover that I think were sort of the quote-unquote biggest blunders of 2024 from the watch manufacturing community. But Arthur, good to see you as well. Welcome to the live stream. Glad you could make it. Underachieving Watch Collector, good morning to you, and thank you for being a 99-cent club member. I do appreciate it. Same for Patrick with Pocket Watch Time. We will go. We are going, but thank you for, I know some of you are gifted the memberships, but you get thanked for them anyway because I can't tell the difference after they're bestowed. So thank you for being a member of the channel. Thomas with the Escapement Show, hello. Hope things are going well for you. I was able to catch part of your stream this morning. I think you guys went for 3 hours. I watched for about the first 30 minutes, and then I fell back asleep because it was only 5:30 a.m. my time. But I woke up early, and I was like, let's take a look at it. It's going to be fun. Boo Ferris, welcome to the live stream. Thank you for being a member, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Pixel Punch, hello. Hope things are going well for you, and we will be cracking along here. So I want to start with ball watch. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but there's a rule. I don't know if it's a rule, but I'm going to call it a rule. I'm going to call it a business role, even though I've spent my entire professional career in the nonprofit and governmental space. But it's a very simple rule. Think of it as the Thanksgiving dinner rule. When you get the whole extended family together and you're gonna, it's for a lot of people, it's traumatic. It's stress. They don't know what the crazy uncle's gonna say, or they're worried about what grandma's gonna say. There's always a rule of thumb that all these uncles and grandmas are forgetting about. You don't talk politics and you don't talk religion. And if you avoid those two things, you will avoid most, not all, but you will avoid most sources of drama. Same applies to business, because talking about specific religions and talking about specific ideologies does only one thing in it, by and large, and that is alienate customers. How many more people are going to buy a particular watch because the brand is Lutheran? Or how many more people are going to buy a watch because the brand is run by Republicans? You're going to lose more than you would ever gain. It doesn't make any sense to do it like that. So then you take Ball, and they're like, why not both? They did both. This was right after the US election. And I'm going to show you some images so you can see exactly what happened. But for context, for those of you watching who are not in the United States, in November, we had our presidential election. It was very contentious. Donald Trump won by a sizable amount of electoral college votes. However, popular vote-wise, it was a very, very close election with neither him nor his main opponent. I almost said primary opponent, but that starts to get into the primary space of Kamala Harris. Both had just under 50% of the vote. So it was a very close popular vote. So my point is the country was very divided on this decision, as they have been on a lot of recent presidential elections. There haven't been, it's been a long time, I would say, probably since Bill Clinton, where there was a sizable popular vote win. I think that was just for his second term. But Paul, I have a political science background. So anyway, I will fall down a rabbit hole that we do not want to go into in watches. But this is what Ball put out right after the election. And if you cannot read it, I will see if I can get this to zoom. I cannot, because it's a clip from Reddit, but I will read it to you because it's very brief. Ball Watch Company posted, "Let there be light. Greatness is calling. Make America great again," which was Donald Trump's campaign slogan. "And thanks be to God." Oh, I can zoom in. There we go. I have a little magnifying glass. Okay. No. Look, I don't care if you were a Trump supporter or not. I don't care what religion you are. This is not a smart move for a brand. You not only endorsed one specific political candidate, which means you have now alienated half the country with your choice. You even had to throw in a little religion part, suggesting that the election was the result of divine intervention, which could alienate certain people in what they feel is and isn't the role of religion as well. So here's my point. This doesn't sell watches, but I'll tell you what it does. It stops people from buying them. It could have just as easily, if they had done the same thing, if Harris had won and you just swapped this for one of her campaign slogans, same problem. All you have done is piss people off. Absolutely stupid. I know people who will never consider buying Ball now because of this announcement. So, and I don't know if anyone is like, oh, I didn't know what watch to buy. But now that Ball's endorsed the new president, I really want to buy a Ball, especially since Donald Trump has his own line of watches with his name on them that already would more appeal to a segment that wanted to visibly support him, because most people aren't going to know anything about Ball watches. So, and I actually glancing, I wanted to say this quote, and I'm glad that Koji, who had posted it, shared it. When asked about why Michael Jordan would not push push in favor of, I'm assuming that based off of the quote that he was known to be a Democrat, but I don't know if that's true or not. But one of the things that was pointed out by him was Republicans buy sneakers too. Why would, when it comes to selling shoes, why would you go out there and alienate an entire group of people that you don't agree with ideologically? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this was very, 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 very stupid. And there was a follow-up. So I want to be fair and show you this. So this was someone on on Reddit had said that they had written into Watch taking issue with. They took down that post. They took it down pretty quickly. And so anyway, apparently the social media manager had put it in, and he didn't run it by anyone, which all makes sense because, again, from a business perspective, it was exceedingly stupid. Stupid. This did not do Ball any favors whatsoever. So they can apologize one at a time to the people who took offense. But a lot of people would have seen that and been like, a watch company that got political, I just ain't going to buy them, period. I don't want them to. There are plenty that do the same thing with musicians and such, where they get mad when a musician, puts out a political opinion, and they're just like, I would rather them just not do that. And of course, those are individuals, and everyone has their own choice. But Ball is a whole company. It's not, the brand. Like Taylor Swift is her own brand. What she does is what she does because it's all about just her as a person. We've seen similar things with Tenacious D. So Tenacious D, which is the musical duo with Jack Black, and I'm forgetting the name of the other guy, which I shouldn't because it's very disrespectful, but I'm not a big follower of theirs. But anyway, the non-Jack Black said a comment that was very derogatory to Donald Trump, and Jack Black distanced himself because it happened at a concert, and he does movies and stuff, and he does not want, Republicans watch movies too. He did not want to be associated with that statement. So the whole point is, it's a big blunder when you start doing things like this. And so one social media person's excitement who worked for Ball has probably significantly, well, I can't say if it significantly impacted their sales, but it significantly impacted the image of the brand, because these watch companies by and large stay completely out of politics for a reason. So just one of those, so anyway, one of those interesting things. Let me get caught up with chat, and we will move on to some non-political blunder discussions. But Pixel Punch says, well, I'll never be buying a Ball. See, it's these sort of things that why would do you want to watch a company that takes political positions? Because then you start questioning what's their position on everything else. And even if you liked a statement that they said, if it sounds like they've got political positions, you'll eventually find a position that you don't like, because most people do not walk in lockstep on anything. Parties adopt platforms, but I've never met an individual who subscribed to an entire political party's platform. It's just, those are consensus building documents. Irvin notes, not even on a first date is it wise to talk about religion and politics. It's always dangerous ground. Now, long-term wise, compatibility, understanding where people are, because some things are deal breakers, I totally get that. So at some stage, one of those things that ends up having to happen. So underachieving, I see, said Ball and alienated the Satanist demographic. Satanists are incidentally, in the United States at least, again, I can't speak for other places, it's an interesting group that so there are two forms. There's one that might actually be people that subscribe to like something based off of Christian Satanism. And then there's another group which they formed it as a religion to test the boundaries of separation between church and state. And it's really more of an atheist group. So kind of interesting. But again, we're not here to talk about politics, so I will stay away from that. Patrick says, sweet, now I can get some Ball pocket watches on a discount. Doubt it. Nobody reads Facebook anymore. Well, it got shared on Reddit, Patrick. So your discounts may be true. It may be time to check the bargain bins. I used to see a lot of Ball watches on Joma Shop, actually, because Ball I don't know if it's still the case, but Ball was one of those companies that had a reputation of overproducing and then just dumping stock on the gray, just dumping it. I remember for a long time you could get a lot of those Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited is a nonprofit group. It's kind of like, almost compared to the NRA, but I think they take a great exception to it. It's a hunter conservation oriented group. So because again, in the environmental movement, oh gosh, we're touching everything political. Environmental movement's got a whole broad range of actors in it. And one of the very active groups are hunter groups that worry about the ability to continue to do hunting. And so Ducks Unlimited, well, it has ducks in the name. I think they're much more broadly focused on conservation in general, animal conservation. So anyway, for years and years, they had deals with Ball watches to have certain special watches made for them. And they had some cool ones one of the older ones I really liked. It started to get more of a camo look, which I don't like camouflage watches, but they had some other ones that were a lot more subdued that I looked at back when I first got into watch collecting. And you used to find those very, very, like you could get them under $1,000 on Joma, because again, if you weren't into Ducks Unlimited, you might not really think much about that watch, but just one of those things. Let's see. Ristful says, hey to me and chat. So hello back, Ristful Ignorance. Thank you for being a 99 Club member and welcome to the live stream. And Thomas says that was definitely blunder number one. It was just, look, it was. I know I missed some of the chat messages. I apologize about that. Things are scrolling a little faster than I expected, but we're in the snarky episode, so it's got to be. These sort of things are always dangerous, and you see political tug of wars happen with companies all the time. It's not an irony, but that's sort of the sad thing about, and why it's more of a blunder in Ball watches. This wasn't like like you'll see right now, there's activist shareholders that are pushing about the whole discussion of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. I just read an article about that in Costco today, for example. No one was pushing Ball to make a statement about politics. Like, no one asked for this. No one was like, gosh, I sure wish I knew where Ball stood on something. And the thing is, I don't think Ball stood on anything. I think the reason no one asked is Ball didn't care. It's not even an American company. It's branded Swiss. I think it's owned by the Chinese. So it didn't make any sense whatsoever. It was just stupid. Don't do these things. All you did was hurt yourself. But Patrick might get a discount. So in a way, there's a silver lining behind every political cloud, I suppose, is the way it could be said. I see Ben 10, welcome to the live stream, asking what people are wearing, and that he is wearing a Tudor Pelagos 39. I am wearing my Citizen the Citizen. We've had rain the last 2 days, light rain, and so I finally have the sun out, so I figured I can go ahead and get this charged up. And yes, Ben's goes, politics, ouch. Yes, we were discussing this statement when Ball celebrated the victory of Donald Trump. And of course, a lot of people got really mad because half the country, roughly, a little less than half the country, wasn't in favor of that victory. And it would have been just as bad had they endorsed the other side for the same exact reason. You've alienated half of your potential purchasing base. Shockingly stupid. Not to mention, let me just add one more thing. I know that this is irrelevant, but speaking of, I can't help it. I cannot help it. But guys, these hashtags, minute repeater. All right, I gotta get close. Ball, you've got to be kidding me, right? Minute repeater, hashtag minute repeater. Have you lost your mind? You don't make minute repeaters. You probably don't even know what a minute repeater is. All right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be so judgmental about Ball. Ball is not known for minute repeaters. They're not known for any advanced alarm complications whatsoever. And nobody find me some historic Ball minute repeater, because I don't want to eat my words. I'm on a rant right now. That is absolutely shocking. That is a false advertising hashtag. You cannot go around going hashtag minute repeater. You just can't do it. You want to do stuff like Loom, Tool Watch, which are also in there. You can see them here. Absolutely fine. Tool, fine. I don't know if they have an alarm GMT. Marvel, I think, is one of their lines, or they're trying to piggyback on Marvel, studio success. I don't know. Minute repeater. Hell no. Absolutely not. Minute repeater. God. Now I'm extra. Now I'm that pisses me off even more. Minute repeater. Please. Ball watch. I can't believe this. I just can't believe this. Anyway, all right. Enough of that snarkiness. We need a palate cleanser. All right. So we talked about blunder. Blunder number one was, sorry, I just saw it's hashtag Loom. Look, at least, but they have Loom, right? At least it's true. They have Loom on their watches, so I could give them that. But I mean, minute repeater, come on. No, absolutely not. No, they don't even know. They don't even know about a minute repeater. No, they have chronographs, right? They could have done hashtag chronograph or something. But minute repeater, I mean, what realm do you think you're stepping in? What's next? Perpetual calendar? I mean, maybe they have a quartz one, they could do that. Like Citizen does. This is a perpetual calendar. They can say hashtag perpetual calendar. Ball needs to know its place. Absolutely. All right. This is going too far. All right. My number 2 is Braemont. Blunder number 2 has to be Braemont. Now, maybe this isn't a blunder. I want to, you guys let me know, because I have seen others that have defended Braemont's decision, but okay. So Braemont rebranded, basically. It's still called Braemont. They didn't do a full rebrand. It was a partial rebrand. It's a quasi rebrand, but it was way more extreme than I think anyone else really expected. So real quick nutshell, and I'll throw up an article from a blog to watch so you can see some images and stuff, but so Davide, I think that's his name. I may be mispronounced. It's David with an E at the end. So I'm going to say Davide Serrato. He used to be at Tudor. Speaking of Ben 10's Pelagos, He used to be at Tudor. Now he's the CEO of Braemont. And so they came in and they launched like the whole Terra Nova collection, and they pivoted. Braemont is a British brand, and they were known for doing aviation watches. And so they pivoted and said, well, now that we're going to focus on land, sea, and air. And I think that's okay. But the problem I have with it is they like changed everything all at once. So here's the article that was written by Mike over at a blog, Mike Razak over at a blog to watch. And he noted one of the things that what they said when they, and I'm quite, you might not be, I'll read it aloud. It's a very short line, but Braemont touts the sudden shift as an evolution from the world of aviation to a new brand architecture embodying land, sea, and air. So here's the thing, and Mike touches on this in his article, but it's not an evolution if you radically just change everything. There's nothing ever. Rolex evolves the Submariner. Rolex evolves the Explorer, right? Iterative change, just like how evolution would function. Braemont went in and changed everything. Like they changed the logo, they changed the themes, they impacted the watches. I mean, they still sell the watches that they had made under the old stuff, but it seemed like they're just trying to clear them out, right? So it was super radical. And I remember when the announcement came out, that's not what stood out to me. What stood out to me was they talked about this. And one of my biggest gripes about Braemont, and I have no attachment to Braemont. I've never owned Braemont. I'm not British. I don't have an inherent love or really thought on British watchmaking. It's kind of like, honestly, though, I don't have much of a thought on American watchmaking. I know some people get really, really excited about it. And there's a lot of British watchmaking, like they are doing a pretty good job of it. Whereas despite the population size in the United States, I can't say we are as impressive when it comes to, American watches. I mean, there's Weiss, and then there's like the super high end stuff like Shapiro. And then there's, a medley of micro brands in between. And there's probably some stuff I'm leaving off. But anyway, Braemont was super expensive though. That was the thing that always stood out to me. I remember right after that, what was the Argyle, the movie, they'd done some collaborations. They were like trying to pull a little bit of a Hamilton, and they'd done collaborations, and I'd look at them and the watches would be, I'd say relatively handsome pieces, but then you'd see the price tag and it was just like, you have to really like this because there's a lot of stuff that meets all of these boxes. And I'd say even visually that was much less. And so it was just a struggle. It was a struggle unless you really wanted to support the brand. Now they've actually gone Hamilton the other way, where it's like, well, now we're going to be land, sea, and air, which is something Hamilton constantly is trying to do. You might not know about it because you always talk about the Hamilton Field Watch, but they have an aviation line and a dive line too. Like I've never owned a Hamilton Field Watch. I had a Hamilton khaki pilot watch. I had an air watch. It was my first mechanical chronograph. So they've gone that route now, and they addressed in a way the pricing. They acknowledged that Braemont's pricing was ambitious. And so now they have watches that are less than what Braemont used to sell for. But at the same time, they also like announced a precious metal watch that was way more than anything I knew about in the Braemont catalog. Might not be there may be something that was more as well that I just don't know about. But I mean, you look at some stuff here like this watch. Well, let me go back to this one. So this one with the numerals and stuff, this reminds me of the pilot watches Zenith, like the font on the, like, it's all, I don't want to say it doesn't have personality, but they've gone super generic in an attempt to save themselves. Now, where I'm hedging, and I want to know maybe if you guys who are watching live or if you're watching the recording, please leave a comment in the chat. Am I wrong? Like, is this what they have to do? Because I get it, that Braemont, it wasn't working. What they were doing was not working. They were not making money. They've got like hedge fund money now. They got to do stuff. But that, like this format, like I remember I just saw a video from Federico on Federico Talks Watches. He's doing one of his Q&A videos, and he got asked about the Zeniths that like have this style of font on their pilot watches. And the question was like, why are they not popular? And again, it was just his opinion, but his opinion was because they're ugly. People don't like the way these dials look by and large. It only appeals to a certain set of individuals. And so going now, it's not, oh, this looks like Braemont. Now you have a watch where maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but then it's like, it looks like a Zenith. Is it priced better than the Zenith? I don't know, because you can get the Zenith gray or used pretty cheap because people want the El Primeros. They don't want the Zenith pilot watches. So it's just, I don't know. Everything that they did, it does look more commercial. And that's where a part of my hedge is I do think Bremont needed a line that was more commercial. You can't just, clearly, they couldn't just sell enough saying, we're British, buy us. And here are all our pilot watches. But I don't know. I mean, it's just, these looks like this Explorer-esque dial. I mean, it's an Explorer style dial or a Tudor. Actually, this looks like a Tudor Black Bay bronze, but not bronze. That's what it reminds me of. So everything like that they came out with, and again, I get it. Davide came from Tudor at one point. He's been at several places. It's just, I've seen all of these before. They're super generic because they all remind me of something else. And Bremont used to have more personality than that. So maybe it's necessary. I mean, they had to do something. Here's where I would say the blunder was that they just did everything all at once. They didn't need to change the logo, not right away. I don't think. I'm not hung up on the logo. It's just, again, you're calling it Bremont, but you're like divorcing yourself from all of the past identity that they built. So much like when we were talking about Ball and then making a political statement, you have Bremont basically making a statement that we don't care about anyone who bought into our brand in the past. The past is dead to us and we want to move on to something else. What I think probably they should have done is explored the idea of launching a new line like their land line and then leaving everything else as it was and kind of, again, evolving. Here you go. Here's the birth of a new watch. Here's the new affordable Bremont. Here's our entry-level model. And we're going to do it land themed. And we still have the aviation ones, at least for the time being. And then pace yourself out and start to make your modifications. Don't just come out with a new logo and then like 3 entirely new lines of watches and just be like, here's the new Bremont, guys. Do you love it? Oh, don't look too closely at how it looks like everything else that I took from more popular brands or brands I used to work for, which were more popular brands. For me, it was a big blunder. So that's why I've provided it as my blunder number 2 for today's discussion. But I'm going to go ahead and get caught up here with the chat. So let me see where it stands. All right. Oh, wow. There's I realized I thought I just had missed a few messages and I know I'll have to miss a few. I know I apologize, but I appreciate everyone who's participating in the chat. So Tuna, welcome to the live stream, by the way. I think you'd said some stuff earlier that I missed, but I have seen you. I appreciate you. And thank you for being a 99 Club member. Bremont were always overpriced. The rebrand makes them even less appealing. Okay. So again, yeah, the pricing stood out to me even as a simple American over here on this side of the pond. But, I see a lot of really expensive watches, so including a number that I think are overpriced. So they weren't alone in that boat, but struggling. Here's the thing I didn't touch on where we want to talk about a past blunder. We can't blame it for this year, but it's still Bremont, is their decision to develop that in-house movement. I think they threw a lot of R&D money in on a brand that wasn't ready for that level of R&D money. Tudor didn't start with in-house movements. And I think they just wasted a lot of money going in the wrong direction. There are plenty of reasons why Bremont's in the boat that it's in, and it wasn't that it was run well. So that Bremont's in trouble in the first place is not the new management's fault. And Bremont has been in trouble for a long time. But a number of their decisions, I think, forced them to have overly ambitious pricing because they spent way more than they ever should have trying to get that company wherever they envisioned it to be. David, welcome to the live stream, and thank you for being a 99 Club member to you as well. Don't forget RMG Watch Company in Pennsylvania. I did forget. Thank you for reminding me. They have some very interesting watches. I think I know they have wrist watches. Don't they also do pocket watches as well? I don't know. That's a Patrick question. But I've looked at their website a couple of times, but I've never found anything that caught my eye enough to really dive in on it. Risk for Ignorance says, iteration is key. Bremont threw away the whole playbook. Bremont's playing a new game. Like if it was, I was going to say, what games do they play in England? Britain. Let me be fair. I don't want to say England. I know there are things, they're landmines separate from politics and religion. And that one might actually be kind of in the political realm. All right, let's like soccer. Like they were playing football. I'll say football. They were playing football, and now they're playing water polo. I don't know. I don't know what they're playing anymore. Arthur says, Brew watches are a great American brand. Wearing my titanium metric today I got for Christmas. Well, congratulations on the Christmas gift. Yes, but Brew is definitely in that bucket of micro brands. So they are not big enough to be a non-micro brand. I really do like the look of a lot of the brews, especially, well, really the original in particular, just that classic. I'm not into coffee. I don't drink coffee, but like just the layout of the chronograph, it's kind of like what stood out to me with Studio Underdog, except Studio Underdog is super playful, and Brew it felt more down to earth but unique at the same time, if that makes sense. Ben 10 says, I want to go in depth with collecting RGM. Oh, so you are a big time RGM lover. Wow. I do not know anything much else beyond what I've already said about RGM. I see Patrick has said, I am in line for an RGM. Never would have bought it if not American made. So see, pedigree does matter to a number of collectors. And I can't say that pedigree never would matter to me. I mean, there are a lot of people, like I wanted a German watch, so I got a German watch. I'd had a Swiss watch for years, so I didn't really think much about that. But like having representation from development areas makes a lot of sense to me. It's just I don't have an inherent desire for smaller players, I guess I should say. So American made, British made. I've seen some cool stuff. Like it would never stop me from buying a watch, but I'm not here trying to collect countries. It's like I had Switzerland, Japan, and Germany. I got the three that I consider the sizable, serious watchmaking nations. But the interest wasn't to get a diversity of nations. It was a diversity of design philosophy. And I feel that those three areas have very unique design philosophies. Not always. Some of them clone each other or clone other things, but where they're allowed to let their wings soar. Grand Seiko has a specific look that developed from a grammar of design that was specific to its watchmakers who were from Japan. So it's elements like that I think are interesting. See, Thomas has quite the statement on Bremont. Bremont's rebrand was disastrous. They lost everything from their original identity. They ditched the propeller logo for the logo of a clothing brand, Stone Island. The Terra Nova is a Hamilton ripoff. A number of these things I feel are Hamilton ripoffs to one degree or another. Ristful says, Ben 10, I got hands-on with the RJM 801EE, and it says that it is gorgeous. So that is very, very cool. And David has bought an RGM. Well, apparently I need to brush up on my RGM or at least this chat will brush me up on RGM because, wow, I did not realize there was so much popularity for it. I just bought my first RGM this month. Solita movement, but gorgeous guilloche dial with Breguet numerals and heat blued Breguet hands. I love Breguet numerals, and I like Breguet hands a lot too. I actually do not own a watch, I think, anymore with Breguet numerals. Have I ever had one? I had Breguet hands on a watch, but Underachieving says Bremont is overpriced, bland, and forgettable. I think a lot of people would say that's what and that's why, and I would say it too. That's why I've put them in as one of my 2024 blunders. Patrick says, as for Bremont, very generic, not ugly, but should be $1,500 for how they look. Yeah, I mean, some I can see being a little bit higher than others for that. But again, you're basically a startup now, right? You're like a new brand. I mean, you have some heritage, but your heritage is Bremont. It doesn't go back very far. And then you took most of the time when we see like revival brands, like what Breitling's doing with Universal Genève, or what Jean-Claude Biver did with Blancpain when he revived the brand. Like, the whole point is the back catalog, not let's take the name Bremont and throw away the catalog. Now, and I don't want to go too far because Bremont wasn't doing great. So I can't say their catalog was awesome, or at least their catalog at the price they had it at. And that's what I think the thing was. I think if Bremont had been able to have their look and have it more affordable, there was a toehold that they could have gotten in on. But again, I don't know enough about the details of the business to be able to say that for sure. I'm just someone on YouTube speculating, and so you just get my mind thoughts on a Saturday morning. David says, and I definitely want to get an RJM GM with their in-house 801 movement. Well, I'm really glad I didn't put RGM as a blunder for 24 because I think you guys would have torn me apart by now. I didn't have anything that would be bad from them that I could cite. Wristful Ignorance says the RGM Caliber 20 is on my dream list for sure. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a bit because you guys are just having a love fest with the RGMs, and we're here to talk about Bremont. Tuna said Bremont did invest a lot manufacturing in the UK, which is rare these days for a mass market watch. And I can see where people that want to celebrate and support that went in on Bremont. And again, I think I can't speak for all of them, of course, but I think a lot of them probably feel betrayed because of that, because there was all that support. And now it's just kind of like done and dusted. I did the hand wipe motion for a reason with that. So, all right, let's see. Skipping down. Patrick says, mark the tape. Dennis doesn't believe in diversity. No. For my watch collecting, my diversity is by brand. I don't focus on nation of creation, but I let it not be said. If anything, some would argue I follow my diversity rules on watches far too much with the whole, I don't want more than 2 of a given brand. Will I cave on that? Maybe eventually. But so far, like I have 2 Seikos in the collection. I have 2 Mr. Jones watches, but that's what I'm more along the lines of, I have 2 Parmigiani, just like I want brand diversity. And I think the other diversity you get comes along in the process. So outside of the big 3 areas, do I own watches from any place else? Yes. My Baltic is from France, which I don't associate with watchmaking. But I mean, they back in the day, sure. But just like back in the day, America had a huge watchmaking thing. It's just now they're all like Swiss names like Ball and Hamilton. Just what ended up happening. So it would be cool if the industry wants to revive, but I don't. There's so much diversity already in the availability of watches and watch brands. I just don't feel like there's the need to have it. Not to mention, no one even. I mean, Shapiro will probably get there. Maybe he has a watch now where he got there, but made in the USA is a very, very difficult label. It's not like Swiss made. It's a very difficult label to apply. And I just don't think it's worth the money. Like most people would never be able to afford it because we just have lost so much of the ability to do all the little things where just it doesn't make sense for us to do the little things anymore because there are other places that do it affordably is where I'm at. But anyway, it is just one of those interesting things. Thomas, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships again. Wow. Very, very generous of you. Greatly appreciated. Or assume the people that get it are appreciated. Maybe they'll be like, oh God, now I'm a member of this channel. I never wanted to be. Just one of those things. Okay. So we talked about Ball getting political. We talked about Bremont getting generic. We're going to end with a cover image. This is my last one for you. I of course I had to save the clickbait for last, but this one's not a surprise. This one's not going to shock any of you. But we got to talk the Cubitus. So I'm branding it as a blunder. I think if you look at secondhand pricing and stuff and availability, you would say, Dennis, this is no way a blunder. Patek Philippe is having a great old time selling these things. They're reaching out to their collectors. They're offering them. The collectors are excited to get offered the opportunity to spend tens of thousands of dollars. And so they just shell the money out, which again, is not my personality. So for me, it was like when I posted my video, what was it last week about the call that I got for the dated Submariner, and I only want the no date. So I said, no, there are a number of people that went in that in the comments said they would have said yes. I can see that. I can see it for a couple of reasons. One, may have been close enough and they'd have been happy. Or 2, they want that purchasing relationship and they would take whatever they could get. I'm not here to build relationships with dealers. That's not why I'm here. I want particular watches and that's what I want to buy. And I don't want to buy stuff I don't want. So I don't. And if I really cared, I'd go and buy it gray for more. And when I don't care, I don't. Same here. If I really wanted this watch, it would have been one thing, but I do not. I do not despise this design, but the problem is it is not innovative. It is a boring design. It is a design that reminds you of other watches. And Patek's catalog is going to remind you of the Nautilus. And that's why I think it was a blunder. After 24 years, 20 plus years of not having a new watch line, they lacked the courage and conviction to do something new. They had to lean on Gerald Genta's design, and I ascribe fear to them for it. I think they were cowardly. I think this was a coward's move, and they developed a coward's watch. And you can love it, and none of that baggage falls on the buyer. So if you love the look of this watch and you want to buy a 45 millimeter square watch for your 6.5-inch wrist, more power to you. You do what you want. You do you. But the decision to have the same style of dial striping that we know from the Nautilus, the flanks to mimic the porthole, which doesn't look at all like a porthole on a square watch, but these flanges or whatever you want to call them, the hinged look, it's still there from the Nautilus. The hands from the Nautilus, it's a Nautilus wannabe. And to call it a new line is borderline insulting. Again, I'll give a little bit of a pass on that because the Aquanaut had started essentially as a Nautilus, but the Aquanaut, in some ways, it looks more like a Nautilus than these. In other ways, though, it looks dramatically different. Bottom line is, they want to call it whatever they want to call it, that's fine. But this is not, to me, a real new collection. They took a Nautilus and turned it into a square. It's pretty basic. Coupled with that, we have to touch on Theory Stern. Am I saying his first name right? I'm not sure. Theory Stern. Mr. Stern. Mr. Stern, whose response in a now quite infamous interview to the criticism levied at his watch, which, to be fair, I'm sure, as he noted, he designed the watch, he was probably offended or sensitive to that criticism. And it did receive a lot of criticism. I criticized this watch. This watch received probably, I'd say, the same amount of criticism that Audemars Piguet got with the 1159. Different styles of criticism. People looked at the 1159 and were like, what is this? But no one said this looks like something else they had, or at least I don't know of anyone who said that the 1159 looked like a Royal Oak, ripoff or a Jules Audemars, abomination. Like, no, it was its own unique thing. No one was going around claiming that it looked like it was some sort of derivative thing. They didn't like what they saw. They felt it looked like a fashion watch. And some people have had a little bit, I'll argue, and I'm not here to stay on AP too much, but there's been a bit of revisionist history where I felt when some people were defending the Cubitus, which again, if you like the Cubitus, fine, defend it. That's cool. We are going to have different opinions. But they've had a revisionist approach acting like people like the 1159 now. People do not like the 1159 now. There are some models that eventually came out of the 1159 that were liked, but the 1159 as a broad collection has not all of a sudden become loved with time. AP made changes, and those changes were for the better to improve the watch. And so things like the Star Wheel and stuff have had a great deal of success. Most of the 1159 is unwanted, cheaper used than new, as it should be, just buy bait to get into the line to get a Royal Oak. That's what it is. So don't act like it all of a sudden became a popular line, because it's not. A couple of models aside. This currently is far more popular than the 1159, but that's because it's Patek, and there are people that need to get on those lists because they want to buy grand complications, and whatever way it's going to be, whatever keeps their dealer happy, and it's like drugs, it's whatever keeps your dealer happy, that's what some people do, and they've got the money to do it, so more power to them. But Theory, total blunder, going in and criticizing the people that criticize the watch by saying, in a nutshell, well, they're never going to be able to get a Patek anyway, or they would never get a Patek anyway. So it's insulting on multiple levels. Either he's suggesting that they're too poor to get a Patek, which is some silver spoon BS, which I get it. He never was, like, he was born into money. Like, I wasn't. So I get really annoyed with that silver spoon attitude, but because I never forgot where I came from. But where he came from was not where I came from. But secondarily to that, it was this dismissive notion that only people that weren't ever considering to buy Pateks would dare levy criticism. So it was arrogant. It was arrogant. And arrogance is often offensive. And it was offensive to me. Like, I had an interest. I am now not even considering a used Calatrava because he pissed me off. And he won't make any money off of me if I buy a used Calatrava off of, European Watch Company or whatever. And I'll probably get over it because I do what I want in this space. But I'm like, fine, I'll just look at a Vacheron Traditionnel instead. Like, you're not as special as you think you are. You ain't the only high-end brand in town. And newsflash, Patek, you ain't the best one either. There are a lot of independents that are stepping up way more than Patek has ever done. So, I mean, that's the problem, is they're not king of the mountain. They're king of we are the biggest, like, we make the most of the high end. We get to call ourselves Holy Trinity. Well, so do two other brands. So all of those things combined are just blunders. Whether you agreed with them or not, some parts, were the opposite or not. It's just one of those. It's just one of those things. The other things as a blunder was not as big of one, was the discussion that this was going to be an entry level piece. And I've seen a comment that I will touch on because, again, right now it's not, but even price wise, it's not. Like the basic steel one here, this green one, is like around 45,000 US, but that's about, it's almost 10,000 more than a Calatrava, a basic Calatrava. So this ain't entry level. The Calatrava is not even entry level, though. The Aquanaut's about 10,000 less than the Calatrava. The Aquanaut at retail is like in the low to mid 20s, like the cheapest one. So, like if you're looking for a men's Patek watch, Theory Stern saying that this is supposed to be entry level makes zero. And I don't mean because 45,000 is a lot. Like 40,000, 5,000 can be your entry level if it's your lowest priced watch, but it's not. It's not even close to their lowest priced watch. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. If they got rid of the Aquanaut, they may have a point, because I could see someone saying that the Calatrava is an entry level dress watch, and this is entry level sport. No, the Aquanaut's the entry level sports watch. So that's where I'm at. So I don't feel it was an honest statement. But maybe he meant something different than what I mean when I say entry level. But when I talk entry level, we're talking about the most affordable way to get into something. Normally, I just say into the entire brand. But I think it's okay to carve it up by category. If you want to say like entry level sports, entry level dress, that's fine. I think that's reasonable, because there are plenty of people out there who have no interest in Calatravas. They want a Nautilus. That's what they want. So anyway, I've ranted a little bit about that, but I think even if you like the look of the watch, and I don't hate this look. This is not an ugly watch to me. I question the Nautilification of it. And I think that they were too scared to really do something different. But in some ways, there's certain aspects of this I like better than a Santos. As I've looked at it more, there's certain things I would be interested to try one on, because the thinness is an attractive piece. But again, there's just other things too. They didn't shape the movement. I mean, it smacks of laziness in a lot of ways. And again, it's Patek. I'm sure it'll do fine, but I want to call it a blunder. So it's my channel, so I called it a blunder. But anyway, I see there's been a ton of chat. A lot of people have opinions about these. I'm sure a number of you probably do like them. So this is probably my most controversial pick. But I mean, love it or hate it, it is initiated discussion. So if Patek wanted to be the talk instead of Rolex, they definitely earned it with coming out with some of these things. So anyway, let me throw up a different photo just for variety's sake, and then I will try and get caught up with chat. And I appreciate you all bearing with me as I try and do it. Tuna says, well, it is a Patek. No doubt someone will buy the thing. They've been selling great, absolutely great. And based off of the secondhand value, again, a lot of people didn't really want them, or they're speculating. There are a variety of reasons, but I've seen a number of people come in. Actually, I think I've had some even comment on some of my videos saying that they're very happy with it. And again, if you like the watch, you should get the watch. I never want to come across as I'll absolutely give you my opinion. I think a watch is stupid or ugly or whatever. But in almost all instances, I would say absolutely do whatever you think. Don't let me sway you otherwise. I hedge because you shouldn't be buying a watch from Brick Watch Company, which now that they've decided to clear out. Like if you're the whole Daniel Wellington thing, I don't get ripped off. I want to try and protect you from getting ripped off. But that's not my primary purpose. My primary purpose is just to have fun talking about watches. So anyway, it is doing very well for them. So again, calling it a blunder, definitely could push back on me saying that, because from a commercial perspective, this is doing great. Wistful Ignorance says, even if I could afford it, there's too many better looking squared angular watches for less money. See, that's the thing. Like I personally design wise prefer the Santos Dumont, but that is more of a dress watch, and longtime viewers know I am a more dress watch oriented person. Like I just like dress watch aesthetics better. In some ways I like the bracelet and stuff here. Like for me, I think I like it better than the way like the Santos, I was calling it the regular Santos, the sporty Santos. I don't know. There's some things about the sporty Santos I don't love, but again, I've only tried on the thin ones. I need to try on one of the more sporty ones at some point. I used to own a Santos 100, but that was way, way too big for me, which is part of the reason I didn't like the 45 by 45 millimeter. I mean, the Santos 100 fit it fit my wrist because of how they angled the case, but it wears. Its presence is so big. Very ostentatious. And this is a very ostentatious decision too. I don't care how thin it is. I respect its thinness, but 45 by 45 is just, it's going to scream on the wrist. It will fit fine. The lug to lug is very modest for this watch, but it will scream in terms of its sizing. Underachieving says, watch muggles will think that the Cubitus is great. Hey, it's a Patek. I mean, sure, I guess so. Patek, I don't think Patek's as popular as Patek's got its segment, but it's so high end price wise. Like there's a watch, including amongst watch collectors, or let's say less into the hobby than some of us, which is, again, they're all levels. You don't need to dive all the way. Don't even have to jump into the deep end of the pool. But for a lot of people, like there's a reason why Rolex is so often an aspirational brand, even for long-term collectors, because still there are things, because of the catalog, it's attainable. Like let's set aside the whole thing with the AD and the games and all the rest of it. Price-wise, it's very obtainable. There's a big, big difference between starting with a watch like the Oyster Perpetual, which will retail in men's sizes in the low $7,000 range, and you can find older ones well less used, versus looking at a brand which starts at over $20,000. And a lot of those watches go for even more used than they do new. So you either go vintage or, it's a lot. It's a lot when you start saying my starter price is a car. That's going to keep a lot of enthusiasts away, because it's a lot of money to throw away on a watch. It just is. So Patek will never be like Rolex because Patek's pricing is too high. So I think a lot of watch muggles I don't even remember when I first learned about Patek. The oldest movie I can think of where I heard them mentioned was in the first Beverly Hills Cop movie. But I never thought anything of the brand until I got into collecting. Patrick says, I'm still waiting for Patek prices to fall. My favorite vintage Patek is still too expensive. What is your favorite vintage Patek? Is it a pocket watch? They still make pocket watches. Junior, hello from Michigan. Welcome to the live stream. And thank you for being a 99-cent club member. And let's see. Underachieving says, the only thing I like about the 1159 is the case. I actually kind of liked the 1159. So I like some tacky stuff. Like, to me, I didn't initially think fashion watch. Here's the thing. I actually tried on one though when I was in Dallas earlier this year. And it was one of the Guilloche ones. I think it was I can't remember if it was a blue or a green. I think it was a green. But, normally Guilloche is to cut down on the glare. That's why Breguet started doing Guilloche on its dials, like Abraham Breguet. The whole point was to cut down on the glare to improve legibility. The sheen that they had, kind of like you can see the sheen here on these would be more legible, but like the sheen you sort of see with the light on these, the Guilloche, at least in the boutique's lighting for the 1159, it was just one of the basic time date ones. It made the watch difficult to read. It was actually too reflective, and maybe outside it would have been okay, but it immediately put me off of the watch. And I was like, really? Why is this so hard it's so shiny? Like the dial's so shiny, I can't see the hands easily. So a weird thing to have happen with it. Maybe that's something that I might have had an older model. So maybe that's something they had improved with the more recent ones. Benton said, I would love to try on a Cubitus. I wouldn't love to, but I'd be interested in trying it on. It's not like a dream of mine to try one on though. Same with the Nautilus. I actually now that's the part I should probably clarify. I like this shape. I know it's totally stolen from I see all the Nautilus DNA, and it's just been twisted and corrupted by Saruman here, but I like this shape better than the Nautilus. I just do. I like the square better. I never liked the Nautilus and the porthole look. I can't get into it. I could get into this shape a lot easier. It's just, why does it still have porthole pieces? Because you couldn't get away from doing the Nautilus because you were scared, is my theory. Tuna says, here in the UK, at least, Patek does a nice line of curry powder. I've heard about that there's a curry powder named Patek. And for me, as a pinball person, which, I got my old 1946 pinball playfield back on the wall again. The Stern family has the biggest pinball manufacturer today is Stern Pinball. And the CEO, recently retired CEO, was the founder, Gary Stern, not Theory, Gary. But see, the names are all running together. It's great. It's wonderful. Let's bring it all together. Patel Philippe, probably a Patek fan based off of your name, but I don't know. Dennis, it's the opposite. You need to get a grand complication to get a cubitus right now. Wow. That is, I knew they were doing well. But in a way it's shocking to me, but you know what? I don't follow it closely enough. I'll believe you. So, okay. That's interesting to know. All I ever wanted was a Calatrava, but I just buy it used at this point. Actually, Calatravas tend to lose a little bit of money secondhand, not much. We're talking like 3,000 to 5,000 for modern ones, but they do, dress watches are just not what most people want. So it's one of those, it's just one of those things. Patel follows up with, Dennis, it's an entry-level sports Patek piece, which means it's one of the most desirable and hardest models to get. Okay. I could see that, except it's still, I see the point about being entry sports, but what's your opinion if you're still watching? what's your opinion then of it versus the Aquanaut? Because the Aquanaut's 20,000 less, and it's clearly a sports watch too. So, like, isn't it more entry level than the Cubitus is? Just pricing wise, it seems. I mean, when you're double the price, I don't see how it's an entry piece. I could see where it's like we want you to get the Cubitus to get in line for the Nautilus. Like I could kind of see like that, but the Cubitus pricing is. Well, it's weird now, right? Because the 5711 is discontinued, and the only thing that looks like it's a white gold model now. So I guess the Cubitus is cheaper than the Nautilus at this point retail, but it's not cheaper than the Aquanaut, not all of them. So that's where I kind of struggle. Hey, Aaron's Watches, welcome to the live stream. Hope things are going well for you today. Wristful Ignorance says, it's not a bad looking watch, but, and then ... I don't know what the ... is. The ... might be the blunders that I was identifying, that I think are blunders. Tuna says the Calatrava or nothing for me. The thing is, with the Calatrava, there are so many watches that have looks that are, I mean, we're talking what? If you're talking the way I'm talking, we're talking time plus small seconds, right? Well, you've got your Vacheron Traditionals. You could go into the back catalog. Unfortunately, can't get a modern Audemars with a look like that. The Maurice Grossman vintage, like that was my dress watch pick for 2024, that 39 vintage. It's kind of in that similar, a little bit different change ups. Saxonia, if you want to go German, the Saxonia tends to crop the 6 out with the small seconds. So I don't like the Arabic numeral ones, but if you go with the batons, I don't care. So, there are a lot that have the look, a similar look, that simplistic, I call it the Calatrava look. But the Traditional from Vacheron looks very, very close. You could also say the Patrimony, but it's a totally different handset. So it's just one of those things. Risk says, Calatrava is beautiful, but so tiny. And Patel says, Calatravas are in 39 and 40 millimeters now. Most are not tiny at all. I'm glad I just saw that comment, because that's what I was going to say is the old Calatravas, like you look vintage used a lot. Yeah, you're going to see those small ones, Wristful, like the 33, 34 millimeter. But the modern ones, they're all in that, what I call modern dress sizing. We're talking like that 37 to 30. That's my sweet spot, is 37 to 39 millimeter for a dress watch. So you do see a lot. Most of the ones I look at nowadays are 38s. But yeah, now if you like that general configuration and you're not hung up on a Calatrava and you want bigger, look at the Patrimonies, because Vacheron gets you over 40 millimeter in a Patrimony. So they're for big boy wrists, but for little wrists like mine, the current Calatravas are great. Underachieving says, at least the Nepo baby made the Cubitus hack. Yeah. I still remember. Was it this article? It was. This is Ben Clymer's article. I didn't pay attention which one I grabbed. I just needed something with some pictures. So this is a Houdinki article. You can see the thing at just go to houdinki.com and search for Cubitus if you want. But I remember bringing this up when this got announced, because I used this as my discussion. And there was a line in here about the hacking. And I couldn't tell at the time, and I still cannot tell, if this was a joke or not. Like if this is sarcasm. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but here's the part it says that's relevant. It says, but this new derivation of the existing time-only caliber from Patek has a bit of a party trick. It has a stop seconds feature. Wait, he didn't say it with an exclamation. It has a stop seconds feature. This means when you pull the crown, the second hand stops! Exclamation point. So I emphasized it properly. This allows one to set the time to the second. In vintage lexicon, this is hacking seconds, which is a bit of a nod to chronometry. I could speak. I haven't been drinking. Chronometry nerds. And I think is a bit of an Easter egg to people like me who, well, care about this kind of stuff. This whole article, by and large, is gushing absolutely gushing about the Cubitus. And because of that, I don't think this is sarcasm. I think Ben was actually exclaiming true excitement that a brand with a 40 plus $1,000 watch finally added hacking seconds into their non-form-fitting movement. They couldn't even shape the movement. JLC shapes their movements at watches that are 1/4 this price. Anyway, I always thought this was an incredibly amusing statement to make because hacking seconds is in no way impressive. It is not impressive for a brand of Patek's caliber. They clearly knew how to do hacking seconds for years and years. They have some of the finest mass-made, finest in general, but I'll say mass-made grand complication watches of all time. Beautiful minute repeaters, incredible perpetual calendars. To get excited about hacking seconds is stupid. Is absolutely stupid. That's why when I read it, I thought he's got to be sarcastic, but the rest of the article doesn't read as sarcasm. And he does have some criticisms of the watch, but not as much as I would expect for everything that they ended up doing. I guess would be my thought. I'm actually doing a search for an interesting comparison that I remember reading, which was another thing as I was thinking about Blunders, and that was the dial configuration and how its alignment doesn't really meet up very well. And I was trying to remember, I have it linked somewhere in my past. I guess I can't see it right now, but the grammar, the golden ratio wasn't followed. I actually initially saw some people argue that these watches were following the golden ratio. They are not. They are not. There's no equilateral triangle to be had with, at least not with the chronograph version, which was the one with the big date. So people tried to do it. I thought it was Watch Pro, but I don't remember. But you can't get an equilateral triangle doing these lines through like you can the Longa one. Anyway, someone had a really good visual that really showed it as a mini blunder. This, as a complication watch, was never the one I focused on. So I think that it's a little more aside, beside the point and aside to bring up, but. Like visually, this one didn't appeal to me. I like the simpler one a lot better, and I think it's because it's just not configured in an attractive way. It's asymmetry without structure would be how I'd describe it. Feels like it's asymmetry driven by the movement you stuck in, but is what it is. Let's see. Wristful Ignorance says, my meetup buddy has a 36 vintage Calatrava. Beautiful, but tiny. 36 I would be okay with, but I understand. I have a small, I think it's a 34 or 35 millimeter Bulova Accutron dress watch. It's a bit too small for my comfort. But it was a hand-me-down. Restful says 40 is reasonable on my large frame. You can find some 40s. They're not as common, but some brands will do dress watch 40s. Let's see. Pocket Watch Time says, in regards to my query about his favorite Patek, is the 5085. I actually don't know anything about Patek reference numbers, so I'll have to look them up later. Patel says the Neptune is very cool and that his favorite vintage Patek is the 1591, which appears, I guess, to be a perpetual calendar based off of the judgment of the experts in chat. Patel says, Dennis, it's just about adding depth to the sports range. There's a lot of demand and they want to make only a certain amount of the ranges, so they added a third sports. Okay, that's a good motivation. It's a good motivation. I still don't agree with calling it entry level when it's double the price of your other sports line. But, that's just my take. Koji says, no dishonorable mention for the AP cause. No. Here's the thing with AP this year. Is it really a blunder? They've been blundering this way for, it's not a new blunder, is it? I mean, I didn't love the watch, but I mean, it's just the route AP is going now. AP is so desperately trying, and Patek is in its own way, I think. They're so desperately trying to appeal to a youth market. And you've seen this. I'll find this. You must know the Steve Buscemi meme, right? The hello fellow kids or something. I'm gonna show it to you in case you don't know it. From your know your meme. Here it is. So from a Saturday Night Live skit, if I recall. So Steve Buscemi in a high school. So they gave him a backwards cap, gave him a music shirt, had him carry a skateboard. And he walks up to a group of teens and says, "How do you do, fellow kids?" That is what I feel AP and Patek both are doing at this point. They want to appeal to a younger clientele because the older clientele is getting out of buying watches, mostly because of death, but variety of things. You need to, you still need to have the cycle continue. And the motivations have changed. Different people are into watches in different ways now. We're in a world that went into a period with phones and not wearing watches to then starting wearing computers on the wrist, smartwatches. And so they're all trying to find their niche. And AP is doing the pop culture thing. To me, it's asinine because their starting price points are so high. What youth that are into the things that they are doing, broadly speaking, are buying this stuff? But so what I end up seeing is people like LeBron James are going and they're buying the Black Panthers and all the rest of it. Like they're the ones spending the money on the watches, but not the younger crowd. So that's where I see them struggle like that. And then Patek is doing this. So in a way, I like Patek's approach better because it feels more true to their, like, I don't think AP knows what they're doing. I think AP is just like, it worked for Seiko and it works for Citizen. Let's try it. Pop culture, or music reference, music reference. Let's get featured in music videos and all. And maybe that'll work. I mean, some of their stuff is selling well, like the Marvel stuff, but that's like adults are buying that. Patek, again, other than trust fund babies, what 18-year-old has a Patek? Like you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, most likely, if you have a Patek at 18, unless you bought an old used one. And so they're trying to make their version of hip and cool. But Thierry Stern admitted he designed this. I'm sorry, Thierry, you ain't hip and you ain't cool. You're no cooler than I am. You're richer, but you're no cooler. And I ain't cool. I'm old. What would I be able to do to come up with a design for youth? I don't know anything about what they like. It would be pointless. I could design you a watch that would probably appeal to people in their 40s. Wow, what a shock. So that's the thing, is they need to, and that's where you see with Patek, like, this is not the worst out of Patek. Patek stuff like that Calatrava where they did the alligator leather and made it look like denim. That's where you see old people trying to do, how do you do, fellow kids? Like, well, we're luxury, so we need to do a gator strap. But what are those kids into today? Jeans? Is it jeans? Let's do denim, but not real. We can't commit to doing real denim. That would tarnish our brand. Stupid. Just do real denim or don't. Don't be weird. No one asked for alligator that looked like denim. No one did. So that's stuff like that where it amuses me to see their desperation. They're flailing, and that's what it looks to me like. It's they're flailing. I understand what Patel has brought up about, wanting another sports line collection, and then they don't want to make any more sports watches, so you further diminish the number that are made in the various lines. That all makes sense, like business-wise. But the design aesthetic, I still remember when Thierry was doing that interview in, what was it? I think it was in German. So of course I saw the translated version. And he's talking about his design, him making the Cubitus. And we all know, all of us, even those who love this design, see all the Nautilus DNA. It's right there in your face. Handset, markers, case flanks, line, vertical striping of the dial, all there. No one's hiding it. And then he has, again, I'm going to judge his interview. He has the audacity to say, when asked about, other design influence, how it didn't go well for Patek to rely on outside designers. And I'm like, dude, you just took the most famous outside designer's masterpiece and changed it. You went into your little Photoshop and you bent and squished it and stretched it around, and that's what you did. So yes, I'm not saying he didn't literally do that. I'm using hyperbole here to make a point. But I mean, this is built on the roots of Genta's design, who was an outside hired gun. He didn't work for Patek. He was a hired gun who was brought in to give him a design. And no, the design at the time did not work out. But nowadays, it's the only design people talk about. That's what makes Patek pop. It's the closest thing they have to a pop culture, a true pop culture youth touchstone, is the Instagram hype beast that the 5711 became. Genta's design, not fairies. And so it amuses me for him to be so dismissive of outside designers and how they've never helped. And I'm like, dude, you're coasting on Genta's work at this stage. It ain't the Calatrava that's flying off the shelves. So, I mean, I can get that he wanted to have something of his own, but then he didn't do something of his own. He needed to rely on Genta still. Dude's been dead over a decade. Anyway, Patel says, Patek is a brand that has some of the biggest depth in its collection, from entry-level dress to sports to grand complications. Yes, I would say of the Holy Trinity in particular, they are, I think, the best positioned of the three. Obviously, I think Theory is right in how he's been very cautious about not wanting to fall into Audemars Piguet's trap of becoming the Royal Oak Company and him becoming the Nautilus Company. I think he made some really smart moves regarding that, but those weren't moves this year. So he doesn't get credit this year for that. He's been very cautious about that. And then Vacheron, the more as time's gone by, the more I've appreciated Vacheron's designs, but they don't have a hit. Like, the overseas got hot for a minute. It may still be a little hard to get the blue dial overseas, but it's just, Vacheron just doesn't have they don't have the Royal Oak and the Nautilus. They don't have anything to that level. And a lot of what they do doesn't scream grand complication to me, though they can do those sort of things. It's just, what do we talk about? We talk about their sports line. Patek has always made sure we remember their grand complications. And of the three, I would always say, in my opinion, they have the best grand complications. Audemars Piguet, yeah, they can still do complications. They mostly just stick tourbillons and things, but they can do complications. But they don't like to show it off as much anymore. But it's an interesting thing. Interesting to me. Captain, welcome to the live stream, and for being a 99-cent club member, I appreciate that. It says, hey, Tan, my 39mm 52-27 is the perfect size Calatrava for my wrist. Considered Longa, but wisely chose Patek. Not a difficult decision. I love Longa, but I don't know which Longa you were looking at. Longa 1 is my favorite design, though. So for me, it would have been an easy decision, but it would have been the other way. But I do greatly like many of the Calatravas. Let's see. JLC really are the shining star per Tuna. And let me catch back up. A lot of chat. I've fallen behind again. Patel says, for me on JLC is one and done on the Reverso. I'd rather just buy their movements in other watches like the AP 15202 Jumbo. Yeah. And I've checked out their, like, JLC. Again, I can't say they had a blunder this year, but they could use a sports watch. We're talking about Patek and diversifying sports watch lines. JLC needs to figure something out on the sports watch line, because the Reverso ain't going to carry him forever, I don't think. If I were to get a JLC again, it would probably be a Reverso, this time in precious metal. But honestly, I'm not really looking at JLC anymore. I did really like my Reverso. It was the thinnest watch I ever owned. But just one of those things. Rispel says, pesky death and all. Well, it is a frustrating thing businesses have to deal with. And Underachieving says, most of Patek's customer base has one foot in the grave while circling the drain. It's a challenge for any legacy brand. So I ain't going to criticize that they're trying, but the flailing is like, bring in some youth to help. Don't say, oh, I'm CEO. I must be brilliant, especially when daddy gave you the company. I'm just saying, it doesn't prove much of anything other than your dad had a company and had a lot of decision-making authority and decided to let you have it too. Patrick says, same. JLC doesn't have passion for me. Great watches, but they don't have personality. Patel says, JLC doesn't really do high horology on most of their pieces. Majority are machine finished. Common misconception. Yeah. And most of the stuff, I'm not big into complications, but again, they're expensive. They, the maintenance costs and stuff. It's just not a space for me, really, I would say. My dream complication is a minute repeater. Like, I love, like, just as the idea, not from a functionality standpoint, just the idea of a minute repeater, I absolutely love. I love the concept. And then I saw the prices and I was like, I probably will never own a mechanical minute repeater. Probably not, but we'll see. Let's see. Patel says, is more comparable to Grand Seiko, this is JLC, than it is to the Trinity, in my opinion. They've done more complications, though, than Grand Seiko, right? Like, I still remember what was it? I was called the Octa Finissimo. I know that was all right. What was that? that was Watches and Wonders. What was it, 22 or 23? The Reverso that they made like 10 or 11 of them, or up to, they said they'd make up to. It was over $1 million watch. It was a 4-sided Reverso that had all the complications, like all the complications. It was chronograph, it was minute repeater, it was a perpetual, it had the moon phase, it did some of the tide tracking stuff. It was, so JLC has some chops there, just like Omega. Omega is not known for the complications, but on occasion, they take a design and they flex and they show that they really do have the capability of doing grand complications. All that to say, well, I agree with Patel that JLC, most of their watches are, in the vein of Grand Seiko. I can't remember a Grand Seiko with impressive complications. I just, like, to me, Grand Seiko is in the realm of Rolex. Like, they might do a calendar, like an annual, right? That's like Rolex's highest end thing, right? Is an annual calendar, right? They don't do complications. It's not what they do. So they know their place. Grand Seiko, I feel, knows their place, and it's not grand complications. But one of those things. Patel, thank you for all the feedback, by the way. Vacheron 222 in steel will likely be a hit. I think so. I don't know if it's going to, like, long term. It's really hard to say. Amongst collectors, huge. I mentioned on my on one of my prior live streams, I so desperately want Vacheron to put the 222 out in steel because I want a gold one. And I think that a lot of people are going to dump the gold ones that got them because they really wanted steel. They want to wear it all the time. They want something robust. They bought gold because they just love the design so much. But I think Vacheron, I think they will do steel. I think Vacheron's going to do the 222 in steel at some point. It wouldn't even surprise me if it happens in 25. I know they're I think Vacheron's been a little perplexed because they're like, but the Overseas is just a modernized 222. Why is everyone so excited about this? But they just, look, it doesn't matter. You don't have to understand. Just know that it's hot and strike while it still is hot, because it will cool. It will cool off eventually. So let's see. Patel says you can get an IWC Portuguese minute repeater for 40,000 these days. It still would be the most expensive watch I've ever owned, but it could be done. It could be done. So thank you for pointing that one out. I had a Portuguese at one point. Terrible winding experience. One of the, before the Portuguese, or was one of the ones with a pocket watch movement. I had to like take microfiber cloth and grab the crown to get it fully wound. The crown was so small. The torque got so high as you wound that thing up. It was rough. A weird decision. I see why they didn't sell very many of them, I guess would be my response on that. But that was a little bit of an aside. Patel adds, the issue with some minute repeater is they are often not water resistant. They are only dust and moisture resistant due to the mechanism and thus not usable, meaning you have to take it off when you wash your hands, which again, that's pretty unappealing. I'm totally happy living with 30 meters of water resistance for dress watches, but I need them to be splash proof. I don't want to take my watch off all the time. It would absolutely kill the experience for me. But anyway, that is it. I've gone through my 3 blunders. I want to thank everyone who watched live and all of you who are active in chat. It's what makes the show actually function. I'm no fun to just listen to lecture. So being able to respond is what makes this fun for me to do. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, even if you disagreed with my opinions. Thank you all for sharing those. If you're watching the recording, please do leave your opinions in the comment section. I do go back and read those. It's just a hobby for me. So it was fun to do. I really appreciate all of your time. Hope you all have a really good new year. I will plan to be back on Saturday. I might do some stuff during the week. I have this whole next week off. I haven't decided though, if I want to just be lazy or finish doing some stuff around the house. So anyway, I might be back before next Saturday. I will plan to be back as of next Saturday. And other than that, I will wish you all a very good weekend. I hope you all have a great rest of your days. Take care.